I'm a developer advocate at InfraCloud, where I help individuals and companies adopt various open source tools and technologies. And my day-to-day role involves creating code, building POCs, writing documentation, creating videos, doing webinars, organizing community meetups, and speaking at meetups like this. I'm also a CNCF ambassador and also the co-chair for the platform working group that I would be talking about. I do a lot of work around cloud native Kubernetes and platform engineering. And just like everyone's learning AI and all the AI buzz that's happening, I'm also picking up AI and trying to spend time learning about RAGs and reactive agents, AI agents, and etc. Outside of work, I am a big time foodie and a travel blogger. So when I am not working or I'm not talking about platform engineering, I take my car for a spin. I'm outside exploring places, trying out new food. And I share all my travel stories on socialmaharaj.com. That's where I blog. So you can reach out to me on Instagram and Twitter. That's where I'm active. The Tech Maharaj for all work-related platform engineering stuff. Atul Maharaj for all non-work-related stuff. So while the presentation was already made a week ago, this was an addition that was made while the keynote was going on. So all of you saw this. I appreciate Nikita for putting this up, and we look her up, in terms of when it comes to delivering sessions and presentations. And I think this was one of the great slides that she put up. So it's clearly here. 2023 was the year for platform engineering. Even I had been reading about DevOps and eventually stumbled upon what platform engineering is. And that's how I came to know about the platform engineering working group that we have. So to begin with, we'll talk about platform engineering basics. Just a quick touch-up so that everyone here is aware about platform engineering and are on the same base, and then we begin. And since I'm a food blogger, I'll obviously start by talking about food. So a lot of times when I travel, I obviously look out for places which are locally famous, right? So when I'm coming to Delhi, I know Sitaram Divanchand is the place to go for chole bhature, or maybe Nagpal. So these are some popular names when it comes to food. So when you picture a typical street food stall or even a fancy kitchen, you'll see that there are a lot of people involved in making a dish or running a restaurant, especially kitchen. So you have a person who is the chef, who is making the dishes that are supposed to be made. There is a person who is taking the orders from someone that, hey, what do you want? So I need a chole bhature or a kachori or a samosa. So he's taking orders. Then we have someone who is serving the orders to the person who has ordered, right? So there are different people in the kitchen, all of them doing different things, but then all of them are disconnected. So what this leads to is that the chefs prepare the food, but they don't know what the server is doing, where he's putting the stuff. The servers are taking the order without understanding whether he has some things or not. I'm sure a lot of you would have faced an experience where you go to a shop, you order something, and he says it's not available because the person at the counter doesn't know that chole bhature khatam ho gaya piche, because he's disconnected. Similarly, each chef has a different recipe for making a dish. So even though you go to the same restaurant ordering the same dish again and again, you might get a different flavor because each chef might have a different way to prepare a particular dish. So there is no standardization. The recipe keeps on changing. So every time you eat, you'll find a different taste, the different way it was made. And then obviously, in the end, when something goes wrong, each of them will blame each other, right? The chef will be like, hey, you didn't get the ingredients. He'll be screaming at the procurement guy. The procurement guy would be like, hey, you didn't give me the proper list. The server would be like, I don't know what's happening. So the blame game happens. Now, if you have been into tech, this exact scenario can be taken up into a typical software engineering team. The exact thing what happens inside a kitchen, disjointed teams, dysfunctional teams, a lot of things happening. That's essentially what happened quite a few years ago when it came to software engineering. So you had developers who were writing code in isolation. So every developer was writing a particular module, a particular function, and throwing it to the ops team to say, hey, go ahead and deploy it somewhere. And that's what the ops team was going. Now, each developer had their own development environment. It could be a different tool that they were using, different IDE, or even a lot of times what happened was the framework versions itself used to change. So let's say I was using 10.1, the other developer in the same team was using 9.8. So while we were developing, we might not have issues, but then eventually when it goes to production, something would just not work. So each developer had a different environment, and there was no standardized deployment process. So eventually, again, in this case, if there was a bug or a customer raised an issue, the dev would be pointing fingers to ops, and ops would be pointing fingers to dev. And this is where DevOps came in to bridge this particular gap. So to again go back to the analogy of a restaurant and chefs, now you have a person sitting at the counter who knows exactly what dishes are inside the kitchen. He will only give you a token when a dish is available. So the entire process is a lot more streamlined. So now if you go to restaurants, everything is automated, right? You order something, he gets a order that is sent directly to the kitchen. The chef sees on his screen what's required, and then he enters things on his computer. So everything is standardized. That's what exactly DevOps did. So it brought in a lot of automation in place while various teams, various different folks were working on building an application or a feature. It improved the whole delivery process. So it was a lot faster because it was automated. And what that helped do was that it allowed all the teams to collaborate in a much better fashion. So earlier when even two devs in the team had no idea of what they were doing. Now everyone knows what each one is working on. So a lot of collaboration started happening. Testing and deployment became a part of your pipeline. So again, this was automated, which basically helped you improve the quality of your product. So every new feature that was built was consistently tested, unit tested, integration system, deployment. So all of this was automated. So every time a new feature was being added, it was a guarantee that when it goes out to the customers, it would be of top-notch quality. And then you had consistent environment. We often speak about it works on my computer, it works on my laptop, and that's where containers came in. But then what DevOps also did because of this was the whole consistent environment thing. So what a developer 1 is using, the exact same would be there with developer 2. And in most cases, what was even happening in the production, that entire thing could be replicated to your dev environment. So this was done using ISC, tools like Terraform, Ansible, Puppet, Chef, a lot of other tools that you use. And lastly, because of all of this, there was better communication within the teams itself. So I was, in my previous organization, I was working for a team that was 1,500 member team for a single project. And there were 12 agile teams. So each team had about 10 people. And this is what helped everyone keep in sync because each team was working on a different feature or a module. But then DevOps came with its own set of challenges, right? So a lot of time, the teams were spending a sizable amount of time setting up the tools and infra. So initially, when things started coming in, when people started adopting tools, your developers were now figuring out, hey, how do I configure my repo to Jenkins? How do I integrate that? How do I configure secrets to Jenkins and how I trigger my build? So they were spending a lot of time in setting up tools and infra rather than actually spending time building the feature that's required. So instead of spending 5 or 8 hours building the feature, they are spending time just setting up the infra. And then what also happened was each team was creating their own solutions for the same problem. So when there are different teams, different smaller teams within a larger team, each and every team would, let's say, create a bash script for copying logs from server to a local system. Now, every team was supposed to do this, but then every team had their own implementation. Someone has written code based, because each developer has a different way of working. That's what we spoke about, the chefs and the whole recipe thing. So that brought in a lot of inconsistency because for the same thing, you had 5 different scripts doing the same thing, unnecessarily wasting time developing that, right? So that led to lack of standardization across. So you'd never had a standardized code. You don't had a standardized process in place. And because of that, it would affect eventually the application or the feature that you are building. And lastly, this put a lot of cognitive load on the developers. So when you talk about platforms, you often come across the word cognitive load because your developers now are focusing on a lot of things other than just development. When you sign up for a new job, you're like, hey, I'm a developer. I'd be using Python, Rust, and building cool new features. But you are thrown at, hey, configure this GitHub repo with Azure DevOps. And you're like, hey, I was not here for this, right? So a lot of cognitive load was being added to the developers. So to overcome this, while DevOps did its own thing, it obviously helped a lot to bring in more collaboration and getting everyone on board. These were some of the problems associated with DevOps. And that is where platform engineering came in. So what platform engineering essentially does is, the whole idea of platform engineering is to reduce the cognitive load on developers. You give developers what they want, and they should not be figuring out or spending time on understanding how this is happening. If they want a particular infra to be created, a container to be deployed, they just say that, hey, I want this, and they don't go behind the scenes and see how it's being created. So a lot of work on platform engineering is around building self-service portals. So currently what happens is, let's say you want an instance, for, let's say, an EC2 instance to do something. You probably have an ops team, you raise a Jira ticket, it goes to the ops team, they figure out, they provision the environment, and then they give it to you. So it's a lot more time consuming. So with platforms, we are building things which are self-service for a lot of different features. And each of these features and capabilities actually depend on your organization. So every organization has different different requirements. And based on those requirements, you actually figure out what are the things that you want to offer as a self-service mode. Secondly, now, because all of these things are abstracted, your developer is now abstracted from the infra-related stuff, the operation stuff, the CI/CD. So now they focus more on building the actual feature, because they are not worried about where my infra is, how is it going to set up, what are the different things that I need to do, because they get everything ready. And because of this, what happens is there is a standardized security. I mean, everything is standardized. I've just mentioned security and compliance, but everything now is standardized across the board, because all the developers in your team go to that one single platform that you have created, and that is in tune with what is required. So let's say if you have an application that requires a DB, let's say MongoDB with a specific version, your platform is going to offer that version, let's say 10.1. So every developer in the team will be using that same platform and will be using version 10.1, which means there is consistency and standardization across the entire application that you have. And lastly, there is faster onboarding for new teams. So this is more from a point of view of, let's say, your engineering manager or a team lead. Because what essentially happens is, whenever a new person joins the team, they'll say that, hey, go and talk to the senior. And you go to the senior, he'll be like, these are the 2 docs, this is the repo, go configure, start looking at the code base, and do something. Now, what happens with this, in this case, is that they spend, because they have no idea. They have been given 2 things, and they have absolutely no idea where to start and what to do. So they spend a lot of time in figuring out what the infra is, what the code base is, eventually making their first commit. So a lot of big companies, let's say, Backstage. How many of you all have heard about Backstage? Quite a few. So Backstage is one of the most popular platform implementation tools that are there. So at Spotify, one of the critical metrics for the Spotify engineering team was the time to first commit. So usually what happens when a new developer is onboarded, they are doing tons of things to get their infrastructure, the code ready, that they take a lot of time to make their first commit to the repo. And that is what they wanted to reduce, and that is what is possible by platform engineering. Again, credits to Nikita for the keynote. She did help me add a lot of slides. So while you want to build a platform team, that's how you feel it would be. All your problems would be taken care of once a platform comes into the picture. But then that's how the reality actually is. There are a lot of things that happen while you're implementing a platform. And a couple of weeks back, I was at Salt Lake City KubeCon, where I spoke about the readiness illusion in platforms. So the whole idea there is, a lot of organizations and teams feel that if I have an engineering team, it means I can build a platform. If I want efficiency, a platform can solve my problems. But these, I feel, are essentially illusions, because having an engineering team doesn't mean that you can build a platform that your developers can use. So that was something that we discussed. And this reality, or the journey that you're seeing, this is where the platform working group can help you, or you can contribute your learnings and journeys to the platform working group and understand how to build your platform and move ahead. So what exactly is the platform working group? So before I go into this, there are going to be tons of QR code in this slide. So even if you miss scanning any QR code, the slides will be uploaded on Shed, so you can download it from there and get all the QR codes there. So the platform working group is a working group within the tag app delivery in the CNCF. So for those of you who don't know, within CNCF, there are a lot of technical advisory groups. You have tag observability, tag runtime, tag app delivery. So each of these tags focus on a specific feature, an aspect of how the entire cloud native journey should proceed. So under the tag app delivery, there is a specific working group started for the platform engineering. They were started a couple of years ago, and the whole idea of this group is to figure out or help with the best practices for ensuring how your application and infrastructure coordinate. So the entire team at the working group is focusing on bridging the gap between the application and infra, bridging the gap between both of them, and then obviously helping you onboard a platform and helping you with your platform journey. So we discuss a lot of concepts and ideas pertaining to platform engineering, and then we have built a lot of assets, which I'll talk about in the later half. And this is what we are doing to help the entire platform engineering community, organizations, teams, to understand what actually platforms are, what are the different ideologies, what are the different pitfalls that they should understand before even starting their platform journey. We have the team there. We look at the current trends that is happening in the platform engineering space. Based on that, we again have a lot of calls, a lot of discussions that the teams do, and then we highlight what are the current trends that organizations should pick up or stay away from. So, for example, everywhere AI is everywhere. Now everyone wants to work with AI workloads. So how does your platform support when it comes to AI workloads? How do you ensure that your platform can either be deployed using AI, or it can be there to deploy an AI workload and manage it, right? So these are some of the trends that we discuss on. And a very salesy pitch here that this is one of the most active platform engineering focused community anywhere. We are about a 1,000-member team on Slack. Again, a lot of QR code in the end for this. And this is one of the most diverse groups. A lot of people in this group are either platform builders. So they are basically part of teams that are building platforms for the developers, or they are on the end user side where they are using a platform, or they are a manager or a stakeholder who is investing in a platform. So there are a lot of different stakeholders from different point of views within the working group. And that is why I felt the need for talking about the group here, so that a lot of you who are working with platforms or in touch with platforms, you have a lot of different people here which can bring in a lot of different ideas to improve your processes. So to know more, that's the QR code which will take you to the tag app delivery platform working group. So there are a few assets that we have already developed. So if you are going to look for platform engineering, this is the first thing that you'll come across. In fact, this was the first thing that I came across when I started my platform engineering journey. So this is the platform's white paper. Essentially, when you Google and ask that, hey, what is a platform? You will come across this white paper. So this white paper basically lays out what exactly a platform is, what are the issues that DevOps had. So basically what I spoke earlier, that is what is mentioned in this white paper in extremely detailed and specific manner. So it is targeted to a lot of people from different roles. So whether you are an end user, whether you are an architect, whether you are a stakeholder. So the definitions and the whole idea about platforms is given in a very detailed manner in this particular white paper. So we speak about the product and applications team. We speak about what are the various platform interfaces. So, how can your developers interact with your platform? Will it be a CLI, whether it will be a GUI, whether it will be API? So what are the ways and why one should choose one over the other? So we discuss that. We talk about platform capabilities. So when you're building a platform, your platform should be able to provide certain capabilities to your developers. And this essentially could be infrastructure. They can request compute, network, storage. Or they can, request a database. Or, if you're using a queue or a broker in your application, you can request that. And then you also have your security and, observability aspects baked in it. So this is just one image from the white paper. And this was, again, a community effort that we have done and donated to the CNCF now. So if you are new to platform engineering or want to know more about platform engineering and deep dive, this is where you should start. I think because this is where I started, and it's quite a good paper which will help you do that. Now, once you know about platforms, once you have discussed within your teams that, hey, I want a platform, and you decide to implement a platform, then your maturity model comes in. So I was part of building this particular maturity model. And this maturity model will help teams and organizations move from their starting point within the platform journey to being a mature organization where a full-fledged platform is present. So this maturity model has about 5 different areas, right from stakeholders to implementation to interfaces to cost, and one more which I'm forgetting. So each of these phases have this maturity here. So you start at a provisional level where, let's say you have some scripts to do something within different teams. At the next level, when you talk about operational, you take these scripts and probably create a module which is a part of your platform now. So every different team will head to the platform and now have a standardized, consistent script or a module that can do a particular task. And similarly, when you go to scalable, you take the entire thing to more teams that you have. You build something called as golden paths, which basically are standardized paths that each and every developer in the team can be a part of to deploy an application or to request a service. And then eventually you are at the L4, which is the most matured organization when it comes to adoption of platform, where you are essentially optimizing and improving the platform that you have built, trying to integrate innovative features that are coming in while also maintaining the current operations. So I was part of the interfaces part of it. I'll talk more about it at a later slide. And these were the two assets that are already presented and donated to CNCF. So these are available out there. You can read them, use them, refer them wherever you want. Now, whatever I'm going to talk from now, these are work in progress items. And this is where any of you can come in and contribute if a particular area interests you. So one of the things that currently we are working on is the platform maturity model assessment. So the maturity model was already in place, right? So people know that this is how you mature as an organization when you're using a platform. But where you exactly stand in that maturity journey is what is being worked on by this particular tool. So again, a group of us, about 10 or 15 people in the group, is focusing on building this particular assessment. And they have come up with a lot of questionnaires when it comes to a yes, no, or a high, low sort of. So do you have a dedicated team to build and maintain a platform, right? Essentially, when you start building a platform, you will loan some engineers from your existing teams to build a platform because you won't have a dedicated platform team right from the word go. So do you have that, yes or no? Is your platform aligned to a strategic or an executive sponsored mandate, or it is just FOMO? Because a lot of things nowadays are FOMO driven, right? That company is using AI, that company is using platform, I should also have it. So a lot of thought is not given and it's FOMO driven. So is your platform initiative that you are planning, is it aligned to your executive goal or not? Does this initiative have a measurable outcome? Why are you building a platform? What is the benefit that you get once you have the platform? Are you reducing your MTTRs? Are you reducing the turnaround time? Are you improving the commit time? The speed at which the features are done, right? So these are some questions which are part of this assessment model, and a lot of people, like I said, are brainstorming and building this. So if you think, or if you or your organization is at a stage where you want to mature, or you have a platform and you are having a lot of experience or issues in implementing platforms, and you feel that you can contribute to this project, there's the QR code for that. So you can go here and pitch in, or even review this. If you feel that, hey, this question doesn't make sense at all, go there and pitch it and start the discussion with the group. Now, the other thing that we are doing is platform as a product interviews. So these are other things that we have started about a few months back, where the whole idea is focusing on your platform as a product, because a platform essentially basically has a lot of modules, a lot of moving parts in it. And that is where you need to build a platform considering your developer as the user. Think of it as a Zomato, for example, right? You need to keep the user in mind. The features that you put in, the delivery options, the subscriptions, the way the whole application works, using feature flags, whatever. So when Zomato is building something, they actually keep the customer in mind. I'm sure you would have seen some tweets saying that, hey, I want the feature to delete the previous order. And immediately, a month later, Dipinder retweets and says, okay, hey, this feature is live. So they are doing a lot of things when it comes to building a product by keeping the customer in mind. And in this case, you build a platform keeping your developer in mind. So you do a lot of research. You'll sit down with your developers and understand how they use a platform. What are the things that they are using? So let's say if your teams are predominantly using a particular version of GKE or a particular version of Azure, you cannot build a platform offering AWS services saying that, hey, my platform team knows how to work with AWS, so we'll provide you an orchestrator to deploy AWS, but your team doesn't use AWS at all. So you can avoid such problems when you're involving developers right from the start. And this is what we are doing in terms of how do you build your platforms with the whole product mindset. So we talk about, let's say this is one interview questionnaire that's in place that actually asks about how do you offer the platform to your developers, how your developers use it. So is it a graphical portal like a Backstage, or is it a set of APIs which is via Kubernetes or Terraform, or do you have a custom CI/CD tools? And then this is an answer from an interview, someone whom we interviewed for the platform as product. So they said that they tried Backstage in this quarter and they don't plan to proceed with it. This is one of the teams saying that. Thinking about the work required to set up and provision it, the team doesn't have the skills and would have to bring folks in. How many of you have tried playing around with Backstage or implementing it? How many of you agree with this statement? I think everyone who raised hand for this. So setting up Backstage is not quite straightforward. It requires you to configure a lot of things, and this is the feedback we got. So this is an exercise that we are doing with a lot of people who are building platforms, consuming platforms, to understand how they are using and what are the various problems they face in their journey. Take that as an input and see how we can improve either the maturity model or the, if we can come up with any other asset. So we did a lot of interviews at KubeCon Salt Lake City, and this is again open. So if you want to register as an interviewer, where you want to interview folks because you think that you know about platforms and you can loan your bandwidth to the group to help with this exercise, please sign up for it. Or if you are part of a team who has a platform and who have had these issues and would like to share your experience with the larger community that can help more platform teams, you can also register as an interviewee, where someone from our team will get in touch with you, all anonymous, and then we interview you to understand your platform journey, which will help us with a lot of other initiatives that we do. One of the last things that we have done and we are currently doing is platform asset translations, where all the assets that we built, so the platform maturity model or the platform white paper, we are working on translating them to different languages. So we already have the glossary in place, because when you come to platforms, there are a lot of terms thrown at you. Developer, cognitive load, golden paths, orchestrator. So there are a lot of terms that are thrown. So we have a glossary for it, and it's available in Spanish, French, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese. We also have the white paper that is translated to Japanese, Korean, and Chinese, and the maturity model in Japanese and Chinese. So most of these, if you see, are global languages. We still don't have a Hindi or an English one. I'm not saying that we need a Hindi one, but if you think you are, if you can contribute to any one of these languages, or if you feel the need for having a particular language where you can help in translate a particular document, this is the QR code there. It will take you to the GitHub repository of the platform working group, where you can find out any of the open issues when it comes to translations, and you can bring in your expertise and help us with translating these documents into these languages. So yeah, these were the things that the team has been doing, and these are the two co-chairs with me. So we have Abby Bankser, who is a principal engineer at Syntasso and a CNCF ambassador. She's based out of London, UK, and that is where she is driving a lot of platform initiatives, and she is one of the initial members or the chairs of this group. And then I have Colin Griffin, who is founder and chief engineer at Crumware, based out of the US. And he's the one who is driving this initiative as well. Colin was supposed to be here. I mean, I see a Slack message from him, but I don't see him here yet. I was expecting him here. So both of them have been driving the entire platform initiative for about a year now. And I have been included more recently over here as a co-chair. And I've been driving the various initiatives as well. Now, a lot of you might have questions in terms of how do I start contributing to the group. And that is the whole agenda why I am here today. Because I've been part of this group for about 1.5 years. It started in September 22-ish, something around that time. And I had absolutely no idea what platform engineering was. I was probably reading about DevOps, and I stumbled upon the platform white paper, and I was like, okay, something's happening in platform. Let us see what the group is doing. But then, like any other project that you want to be a part of, there'll be a lot of misconceptions or, let's say, doubts that you would have that, hey, I don't know about platform engineering. There are all foreigners in the group. All of them are like staff engineers, principal managers. How do I go and sit within that group and contribute, right? So that was my first message to the platform working group. I saw the platform white paper that the group had published, and I was like, hey, this sentence doesn't look grammatically correct. English, no tech stuff. And I was like, okay, this doesn't look right to me. And they did have a newer version of it, and I was like, okay, this doesn't look right to me. At least that's my point. When it's that document seems too salesy, and that's what I wrote. That the new one is surely a smack in the face. I had few suggestions, and I posted it on the document. So it was essentially just reviewing. I reviewed the Google Doc that they have, which was open, and I was like, hey, this doesn't seem fine to me. I think this should be this. And that was my first contribution to the working group in any capacity. So this Slack message coupled with a couple of comments in the Google Doc that they had. And I think that celebration emoji was given by Abby. She is the most active in the group. So after that, I started working. So they were discussing about building the platform maturity model that I spoke about earlier. And they were looking for people to contribute to it. And me being very new to platform engineering, having absolutely no idea, I was like, I want to contribute, but how do I start? So I picked up one of the areas, which is interface, because I felt being a developer for 5-6 years, I had some idea on what interfaces are. Talk about CLI, GUI, APIs, probably something around that. So I took a stab at this document. So there was nothing on interface. I created an outline. I created a base text for them, for the group to work on, and I gave it to the group. So fortunately, about 60% of it remained intact based on what I gave. And other 40%, the more technical details were added to that document. And all those changes made way to the actual platform white paper that you will read. So that essentially was my first ever contribution to the group, which was, again, very non-technical. It was more on how to present information. Because what happens is a lot of people, when they are reading documentation or reading a new manual, this is not, a lot of time that is not beginner friendly. Right? They won't understand what's happening there, and that is where I feel I came in. I was like, hey, I have absolutely no idea about platform engineering, so probably I can help you tone things down so that anyone who's reading this will get a particular idea. And then in KubeCon Chicago in 2023, the group was doing a project meeting. So that was my first time traveling abroad and being part of the project meeting. So we do monthly calls. So I was part of those calls every month, joining the discussions, contributing to the interface document and everything else. But this was the first time I was in person with the actual group. So now I was meeting everyone outside of the Zoom meetings. And this is where I got a chance to talk about a runtime project called Acon, which is now more of an AI chat GPT sort of a product. They pivoted, but then I spoke about Acon here. I spoke about platform orchestrator. So it was essentially a 10-minute talk, but then I was just like, hey, this is what I've been exploring, and maybe let's try it. So in this meeting, I got to interact with teams from AWS. So they are building something called as Canoe, which you can go and check. So that's a platform offering which is coming from AWS. We had the team from Microsoft talk about Radius. So if you are into platform engineering, you would know Microsoft is working on Radius, which is a platform offering. And then there was team from Red Hat, if I'm not wrong, who pitched about Radu, is another platform offering from them. So this is when I actually realized that, hey, this group is actually doing something. I mean, a lot of people are behind the group, that, okay, this is where the whole platform engineering discussions are happening. And that is why I mentioned that this is the most active platform engineering group. So when I interacted with folks from AWS, Microsoft, Red Hat, talking about their offerings, obviously only 20% of it went in my head, 80% went above, because I was still relatively new to it. But then it was just these, one thing led to another, and then I got an opportunity to interact with other folks. And then it was about 2 years, 1.5 years in the group, and I had some sensible understanding of what platforms are, what platform engineering is. That's when I wrote a blog post which went to the news stack. So that was the first independently authored blog post that where I wrote about platform engineering is all about tools. Because what happens is when you talk about platform engineering, the first thing that comes to your mind is tools. The CI/CD tools that I need, the repos that I need, the key stores that I need. So you focus more on tools rather than implementing and how the adoption happens. So I wrote about it. And then there was an initiative on content, which I started internally. And I was like, hey, I want to drive this initiative of writing blog posts, creating content more on what we are doing as a platform group. Because I realized that while we were doing a lot of things, a lot of people were not aware of the existence of the group. How many of you knew about this group before coming into the hall? right? They are like barely 8 or 10 people. So that's the reason why I started this initiative, and that is why I'm here for this talk, that there is this group which is highly active, highly focused on platform engineering, doing wonderful things. And if you are in that space, you have to be here. And then eventually it was about a month back where I was nominated and elected as the co-chair for the group. So I spent a year and a half. I started by reviewing a document, giving a talk about something, and today I'm one of the co-chairs in this particular group. So I just wanted to showcase this, that anyone here who has been dealing with platforms, the group is very, very, very welcoming. Like I said, I just told that, hey, the document doesn't look fine to me, and someone gave a celebration emoji, and that's how I was welcomed in the group. I kept on contributing to the group based on my capabilities and my understanding, and eventually I'm the co-chair of the group, and I'll now be driving a lot of initiatives within the community as well as the weekly calls as well. And with that, how can you contribute, right? So the easiest way, like I said, is writing and reviewing blog posts related to platform engineering. So if there is something already in progress, if you think you can contribute to it, you can do that. Or if you have built something and you want to share those learnings, you can do that. Raise a issue in GitHub repository, say that you want to write a blog post, give an outline. Probably me or Abby will pitch in and we can help you craft that. Or you can join the current ongoing activities. I spoke about the translations that we're doing, the platform as a product assessment, so you can join those. You can also pitch and suggest ideas and concepts that you want to discuss with the community. A lot of times what happens when you are within an organization, you might have ideas, but you might not have access to experts or people who can actually guide you on the platform initiative. So for example, one of the recent discussions that's happening in the group is about internal evangelism of a platform. So when you have built a platform, when your platform engineering team has a platform in place, how do you evangelize about it and tell developers that, hey, why this is a better tool to use rather than you using your bash scripts that you have? So how do you increase the awareness of the platform that you have built in? So this was an issue by one of the members in the group, and he just threw it, and there were like about 100 messages in the thread. I pitched in that, hey, you need to have a champion or an ambassador within the team who can help champion that platform to the developers, saying that, hey, this is the benefit and this is how you use. So if you have anything of that sort that you want to discuss with the larger community, you can do that. And lastly, spread the word about the group. Now everyone knows about the platform working group. Yeah. So everyone knows about it. So do spread the word about it. You can use the assets that are there in the public in any document or presentations that you're doing. Cite them in your blog, videos, posts, or wherever you're doing, and be a part of that. So yeah, you can join us there. That is tagappdelivery.cncf.io. That's the website for Tag App Delivery. WG Platforms on Slack. That is the community we have where we are mostly, all of us are active. So join the Slack, see what's happening. Say what you want to say, discuss what you want to in that Slack. We have fortnightly calls that happen on Tuesdays, 9 p.m. IST. That is where we would be discussing a lot of things about platforms, the ongoing initiatives, the newer things that we want to do. And we also have a YouTube channel where we would be posting the videos of the meetings that we have. So this QR code will take you to the deck. And now I realize I have not uploaded the deck. So probably give me 5 minutes and the deck would probably be available. So you can go to Shed. In this session, you will find the option to download a slide, and you will find this deck there right after the call. So yeah, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to say today about the platform working group, and I'm around for the entire duration of KubeCon. So if you have anything to discuss about platform engineering, or the group, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to help you out. Thank you. I think I can take probably a couple of them before we have the next speaker coming in. Anything you want? Yeah, yes, sir.
So, as things evolve, the platform engineering space becomes a little more convoluted, more complex, and then that same problem pitches into, comes into existence where people are not really sure where to go because there are tons of documentations. What do you do there? This is where we are struggling, by the way.
I think that's a problem that we as a larger group are also discussing, because eventually, if you see, this is leading to the same problem that DevOps had. Now initially you had one tool for CI/CD, now you have 10 tools. So even for platforms, you have different platforms offering different tools that are coming in. And while the whole idea of having a platform is to standardize things, you have a lot of tools and things that are coming into picture. So I think that's where a lot of discussions that brainstorming that a team is doing is on building orchestrators or tools that actually support integrate with a lot of different offerings that are present, so that you can use that as one standard to implement your platform. So for example, when you talk about Canoe right now, the AWS thing, it is very tightly coupled with EC2 and AWS services. So if you are not on EC2 or AWS environment, it might not make sense for you to adopt that tool. So while these tools are coming and giving you a lot of benefits, but then these are all tied up. So that is what we are seeing. We had a call with the Canoe team as well. We had discussions with Radius. So these teams join in, and we are trying to see how we can get everyone on board and make something open source that everyone can use it. So one of the projects that the team developed at Humanitech is Score. So Score is a recently CNCF sandbox project. And what it does is it is an orchestrator. So you give it a Docker file, and then you have your Score implementation in between. It actually converts to whatever you want. You want a Terraform, you want a Swarm, or whatever. So that is one tool that is actually solving this problem, because it doesn't relate to, or it is not tied to a particular option, a particular tool or a project. So we are trying to promote or help similar tools and tech which actually help us deal with a lot of things without being restricted to something. So this discussion is happening, and I would again ask you that you can probably be a part of this, if not to contribute, but at least to understand different perspectives from what they are doing. So there is a person from our in the group who is part of the SNCF, which is the largest train company in Europe. So he's managing a platform team there. So he has a completely different perspective when it comes to platforms. So a lot of different people where you can come and interact with and learn more what's happening. Yes, I think I'll take one more before I leave, because I have the next speaker here. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hi. So we have a platform team, and we are trying to onboard multiple different capability teams, we call in FICO. And we are facing some challenges. So do you have some ideas or some framework which can be used to onboard developers into this platform engineering?
So the platform as a product document that we have in place, which is still work in progress, that gives you a good outline into how you can get more people on board and what are the issues that you face while you are onboarding. Because there will obviously be some resistance from the team, in terms of whether the tools or the tech that is coming in. So we have a dedicated module on that in that document, and also the ongoing discussions are there. So throw this question there. Evangelism is one thing that we are actively discussing, how to get more people aware of the platform. So be there, join the channel. You'll find me there. So if you want, tag me along. I'll tag other folks, and I'm sure they'll help you with this particular issue. Yeah? I'm around. We'll catch up later. Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much for joining in. And yeah, I'm around. We'll catch up later. And I think we have the next speaker here as well.